Welcome to AM Best Audio.
I'm Laurie Chortis for AM Best TV, and we're at the CIRCA ReConnect Conference in Grand Cayman. Joining us now is Faramarz Romer. He's Chief Financial Officer at Greenlight Re and Chair of CIRCA. Faramarz, so great to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having us, and thank you for being here.
Well, we're so excited to be here. It's another wonderful, exciting conference. Can you tell us a little bit about this year's conference and some of the key topics that are being discussed?
Sure. So this year we had a 2 full-day conference. The morning session on day 1 was all focused about Cayman. We were trying to help people understand and discover the reinsurance industry in Cayman. So we started with a journey down memory lane of how Cayman's regulatory regime and regulatory framework has evolved from being a funds jurisdiction, originally a banking jurisdiction, to a funds jurisdiction, and now reinsurance. Well, reinsurance has been around for a while, but the focus now on where we are and how we got here. So that was kind of the first panel. Then we transitioned talking into about, a little insight into the playbook of forming and operating a reinsurance company here. So we had a really well-established panel of people who are from a cross-section of Cayman's service industry to help people understand what it takes to set up and operate a reinsurance company in Cayman. And then the final panel on the first day related to the regulatory side and helping people understand how Cayman's regulatory system works. We had a representative from CIMA, from the Monetary Authority, who gave us a pretty good insight into how they operate, how they regulate, how they supervise the licensing process. And then we also had a former NAIC commissioner who talked to us about the qualified jurisdiction process and how that would operate for Cayman. So really informative panels all morning, really talking about Cayman. On the second day, we then had panels talking more about the broader reinsurance sector. And it was, all the topics that you would expect. Actuarial changes, new regulations coming down, talking about geopolitics, talking about innovation, talking about private assets, talking about artificial intelligence. So we covered a lot in 2-day period, and it was a really impressive set of speakers and panels that our planning committee put together, and we were blown away by how well it went.
That's wonderful. Faramarz, can you tell us a little bit about how ReConnect has grown and evolved over the past 3 years?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, this was our 3rd year for ReConnect, and it's gotten bigger. It's gotten more people attending. We've had more sessions. So this year we had 10 full sessions, 46 speakers, 50 sponsors, and even more for diversity in our speakers. So we had people from other industry, from other countries coming in. We had someone from Google here. We had, a geopolitics person. We had an economist here. And we also had more female representation on the panels and speakers as well to add that dynamic of having more diversity in it. So it's grown, it's got bigger. We had a record attendance this year, which we were really happy about. But at the end of the day, what's even more impressive is that we're getting new people that haven't been to the conference before. About a third of the attendees were attending for the first time, which was really good to see that we're continuing to generate interest and share our message with everyone about what is Cayman's reinsurance industry look like and what does it have to offer.
Wonderful, wonderful. How are reinsurers and captives adapting to evolving regulatory and governance standards? And how is CIRCA supporting members in meeting these rising expectations?
Yeah, look, the regulations are going to continue to evolve. That's a constant. We cannot stop regulations from evolving. The key is that the reinsurers need to be prepared and vigilant for new regulations coming down. Anytime you're in a industry which is heavily regulated as reinsurance is, you have to expect that there will be new risks, there'll be new structures, and regulators will have to keep up with how to make sure that those are safe for the policyholders. So as they adapt to regulations, and those regulations are generally, Cayman has always followed and held up to and aligned itself to the international standards. So if that's a level playing field for all reinsurers, then reinsurers in Cayman just need to be vigilant and tailor their risk management, their stress testing, and their corporate governance to make sure that they are prepared for the impact that any new regulations may have. And that's where CIRCA comes in. CIRCA works with CIMA, has regular communication to understand any new regulations coming down the pipeline. We meet with them on a regular basis, and then when a consultation paper for a new rule or regulation comes out, that's when CIRCA reaches out to its membership, collates the feedback from the membership, and then shares that back, and we have an iterative process with the regulator on our feedback on that proposal. So, it's always going to be an environment where you're going to have change, and CIRCA is the voice for the jurisdiction and for the reinsurers here.
Customize your data experience. BestLink now offers an interactive company dashboard that provides company-level intelligence in a fast, user-friendly interface featuring interactive tables, charts, and Sparkline performance histories. Customize the dashboard tiles to prioritize the insurer ratings, data, and analytics that best support your workflow. AM Best. Our insight, your advantage.
Wonderful. Faramarz, what trends are you seeing in property and casualty reinsurance demand from U.S. and international insurers today?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of the hot topics right now for property casualty reinsurers and insurers is the data centers. The data centers are, grown, have come along and being built very rapidly, and they obviously need to be insured and then reinsured. They have blurred the lines between property catastrophe type coverage, casualty coverage, cyber risks, and that is a theme that we're seeing in how insurers and reinsurers are adapting to that new, the emerging need for providing that cover. We are seeing alternative capital coming in, whether it's through parametric cover or through ILS. We are seeing some insurers and reinsurers using sublimits and exclusions to offer the coverage in order to make sure that those assets are covered. But there is a growing demand for it because some of these data centers, they are hundreds of millions and sometimes even $1 billion in coverage. And when you think about a big hurricane loss, that's kind of the level of coverage that we're now looking at. So, you're looking for coverage on data centers for fire, for power loss, for cyber attacks, and all of that could happen at any time without any warning. So, that's going to be an emerging area for property and casualty. Outside of that, on the property cat side, we're seeing rate softening in spite of 2025 being the 6th consecutive year of over $100 billion industry loss from catastrophes. And what's interesting in that is if you look back for the last 25 years, Aon did a study recently that in the last 25 years, if you look at the catastrophe losses for the first time this year now, or in 2025, severe convective storms have exceeded the amount of cumulative losses from hurricanes. So it's no longer just hurricane risk, it's actually some of these convective storms, what they call the secondary losses, are having an impact on the industry. So, it's interesting to see that happening. At the same time, rates are starting to come down off of their peaks from the 2023-24 years. So we're continuing to see some of that flow through even a little bit outside of the property catastrophe side as well. On the casualty side, we're starting to see some rates that are starting to stabilize, but it's still too early to know, given the nuclear jury verdicts and the social inflation that we're seeing, whether that is still adequate. And time will tell by the time the claims actually come through on those, because they're long-term liabilities.
And Faramarz, as you look ahead to the next 12 to 18 months, what initiatives will CIRCA be focusing on to support the industry?
Yeah, so CIRCA's had a busy year already, and looking ahead, it's going to be a little bit more along the lines of advocacy, education and talent management, and collaboration. So now let me elaborate on that a little bit. Collaboration is between our members and SEMA, the regulators, and the government and the ministry, so that we are all working together to protect the policyholders. We're working together to make sure the regulations are fit for purpose and make sure there are no surprises. The advocacy part ties into that a little bit because CIRCA has been attending industry conferences, attending NAIC quarterly meetings, having ReConnect, for example, as part of that advocacy. And we also have a New York Roundtable event that we have every year. Advocacy for us is helping people understand what is the truth about Cayman's reinsurance regulatory framework. There's a lot of misconception, and our advocacy is to help people understand what is the truth there. Whether it's from the rigor of the licensing requirements for a reinsurer in Cayman, or if it relates to the regulatory supervision of the existing licensees, or the true capital requirements for the reinsurers here. It just takes an education and advocacy point for us to continue doing that. And then the final one is education and talent management, and that's more for talent development, which is more focused on the local Caymanian community. We want to make sure that we are training and promoting Caymanians who could enter and thrive in the reinsurance sector. So far, there hasn't been, most of the talent has been imported to Cayman. But what we're trying to achieve is, over time, have the talent be homegrown. So we have a Rising Stars program, which showcases our Caymanian youth who have excelled in the reinsurance careers. We also go to career fairs, host events for high school and post-secondary students to help them understand what a career in reinsurance would look like. And there are a number of different roles and positions that could be filled from homegrown talent. So all of that goes towards our focus on talent development and education.
Wonderful. Faramarz, so great to see you again. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on another wonderful, exciting ReConnect conference.
Great. Thank you, Laurie, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. From the CIRCA ReConnect Conference in Grand Cayman, I'm Laurie Chortis for AM Best TV.
Looking to get the full attention of the insurance industry? We have the platforms that will do just that. Whether it be AM Best TV, AM Best Audio, Best Review Magazine, or Best Day. Find out more by calling AM Best Advertising Sales at 908-439-2200, extension 5399, and have a great day.